Thank you, Rabbi Strom, cantorial soloist West. Thank you to each and every one of you from Congregation B'nai Yisrael for inviting us, opening the space for us to gather together in the spirit of gratitude. I want to start tonight just by having some fun with oranges. I'm just going to warm up a little bit. You've probably seen this routine before. Let me try it with two. Yeah, okay. You know how when you go to a performance and the person starts out with something really simple and you're thinking, yeah, that's not impressive. You're going to have to earn my applause more than that. Well, now I know what that feels like from the other side. All right. I've never tried this before outside of my own kitchen when I was goofing with my daughters. And you'll be able to see why. See how this works. Yeah, well, this might be really optimistic, but try this with, yeah, okay. So, yeah, whatever. I'm sorry, 3 is my definite limit. I've never juggled 4 before at any time in my life, and it's probably clear that juggling will not be a side hustle for me ever. But I do this as a visual representation of something that is facing all of us, I think. So tonight, I'm going to ask you to do some juggling too. But don't worry, not with the oranges. I'm going to ask you to do some internal juggling. And it has been the custom in our years of having this Interfaith Thanksgiving Gathering to ask the preacher to speak on the theme of gratitude. And I intend to do that. But I also think it's important that we are able to lift up and to hear and to make visible some other feelings that are with us alongside of gratitude tonight. And the question for us to hold is, can we juggle several different feelings at one time? Can we juggle several feelings at one time and still hold our values and our identity? I have put these 2 charts here tonight, and I'm so grateful to Allie West for helping me and helping you and helping all of us, because I want these charts to make visible what is in our hearts and on our minds tonight. So let's start with the equivalent of 1 orange. Let's start with gratitude. And this is your turn. Please, what is in your heart, on your mind, what do you have to give gratitude for right here and right now? Safety, thank you. Family, thank you. This town. I'm sorry? This nation. Was there another one? Did I miss? Health. Thank you. Awesome. Our clergy.
Friends.
Thank you. Food. Awesome. Shelter. Water. The sun. Thank you. Freedom. Love. Home. Fellowship. Intelligence. That too. Yes. Yes. Great. Any others? Pets. Oh, yeah. Nice. Any others? Children. Heat. Rain. Water. Yeah. Education. Democracy. Food, thank you. Nice. I'm sorry? Coffee. Oh, yeah. So, look at this list. The neat thing about doing this all together and what you have just created is if I had asked you that question rhetorically, think of something that you are grateful for, you would have done it, and you would have had it in your head. But you would not have been able to see what is in the heads and on the hearts of those who are gathered together with you. And so what we have is a list that is a partial representation, but a broad representation of things that we might consider blessings, gifts in our lives. So now we're going to do the second list. And this one comes from those other feelings that we are juggling with gratitude this year. Those things and people that we are struggling with. Maybe that we are angry about. Maybe that we bear grief over. This one is a harder list to make, especially in a public setting. I know that. And I'm going to care for us as we name things that might be personal, that might be a little risky, that you might wonder if you should say out loud at a polite Thanksgiving gathering in Armonk, New York. But I assure you that this second list is going to be just as important as the first list. So, what are the things that are also in your mind and on your heart that need to be on this list right now and right here? Terrorism. Insecurity. Death. Did I hear that right? Death. Thank you. Anti-Semitism and loneliness. Okay, I'm going to give Allie just a minute to catch up with us.
All right, loneliness.
Talk about juggling. Hate. Racism. You had one in the back. Sadness, thank you. Someone said loneliness. We got that one. War. Agony. Stress. Pain.
Betrayal.
Okay, we're going to give her a minute to catch up.
Betrayal.
Selfishness. Lack of communication. Lack of empathy. Democracy at risk. Jealousy. Ignorance. And I heard you.
There was something else.
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
Ignorance, yep. We have jealousy and fear. And someone said grief.
And somebody said fear.
Thank you. Got it. Radicalism.
Ignorance.
Good. Yeah. Yes, please.
Guilt. You have to say that.
Say it again.
Guilt.
Guilt and intolerance. Lack of active listening. Hopefully we're helping to push back on that just a little bit right now as we hear each other with things that are not so easy to say. Bullying. Any more? Judgment. Oppression. All right. Thank you. I'm thankful for Allie. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm thankful to be here with all of you.
Look at that list. The things that are on that list are no less significant, not because they're anywhere close to the warmth and the feeling of appreciation that we have for the first list, they're no less significant because they are real and they are among us, and because we carry them with us, and because they are a part of our lives. So, what do we do with those lists? They're representations of things that are particularly meaningful in our lives now. They're powerful words because of where they come from and how they connect to our deep feelings. Language, as you don't need me to tell you, is powerful. It can be used to make space for us to come together, and it can close off space and push us apart. And I've noticed over the years that there are two particular, very small words that have an outsized influence over the impact of the language that we use with each other. They're actually bridge words. One of them is but, and the other is and. But and and. And I want to give you a couple of examples. I could say any number of examples, and you have experience of the contrast between these two, I suspect. But let me give you a couple of examples. Climate change is a problem, but we need to protect people's livelihoods. Or let me make it more interpersonal. I realize that you've been having a lot of stress at work, but I wish you could see the impact that your actions are having on our family right now. So what happens when that word goes between our lists? I am grateful for my family, but the impact of loneliness in my life is crushing. I have gratitude that I have food and water, but my fear of terrorism is overwhelming. I am grateful for my intelligence, but it drives me absolutely crazy when I come up against ignorance. Now, let's try those exact same examples with and. Climate change is a problem, and we need to protect people's livelihoods. I know that you're going through a lot of stress at work right now, and I wish you could see how your actions are affecting our family. When we look at the first word, but, what comes after gets diminished or even negated. When we use that language, what we are saying about the first claim is, you are not as important. You are not of value. There is more than one feeling, but when but is a part of the picture, it becomes clear that there's only room for one. But when and becomes the bridge between the things that we are carrying with us at the same time, feel how it's different. I have gratitude for my family, and sometimes I feel so lonely. I'm grateful that I have food and water, and there are times in which I am fearful of terrorism. I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude for democracy, and I also live in anxiety that democracy is at risk. When that word is our bridge between the things that are real within us at the same time, what comes after the and occupies a shared space. Our capacity expands from the narrow ranking that leaves only room for one thing at the top to a broad acknowledgement, even an honoring of what is held dear. And how, when we see that there is more than one thing that we have at the same time, there needs not be any exclusion of the other. Rabbi Sharon Brose recently shared a Mishnah on the Ezra Klein show about tens of thousands of people making a pilgrimage to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Rabbi Brose is the founder and senior rabbi of ICAR, which is a Jewish community in Los Angeles. And she explained that in the Mishnah, the people went up the steps to the Temple Mount, and they entered through an arched gate. And when they got to the gate, they turned right, and they began to navigate one circumnavigation of the space. But there was one group who did not turn right, and those were the people who were on pilgrimage to the Temple Mount who were brokenhearted. Instead, those people turned left. And as they went against the grain of all of the rest of the pilgrims who had gone right, every person who encountered someone who was brokenhearted was required to stop and ask the question, Malach, what happened to you? And the person would have to answer what it was that had left them brokenhearted. And the people who encountered them, who asked the question, who listened to their story, were obligated to give them a blessing. Rabbi Brose invites us to think about what this encounter means for people who are profoundly in different circumstances, encountering each other in a sacred place with exceptionally different emotions for each. Those who are having this pinnacle pilgrimage experience on the holy mountain in the high holy days, the last thing they would want is to have to stop and ask the poor person coming at them, hey, are you okay? What's your story? What's going on with you? But central to their religious obligation is to see the person who is suffering and to give them a blessing. Now, if you're the person who's brokenhearted, the last thing you want is to have to explain to every stranger who stops you why your heart is broken. But their obligation was to allow themselves to be stopped, to be asked, and to receive a blessing. It happened because both groups intentionally turned in opposite directions so that they would encounter each other, even though it required of them juggling emotions that were extremely different. But they chose to for each other. Thanksgiving comes at a difficult time this year for many. It is understandable that some feel uneasy about indulging in gratitude when many others, perhaps even ourselves, feel so stricken by anger or grief. And it is essential that we protect our capacity to see and appreciate what is right and good and even joyful in our lives. These things sustain our spirits and nourish our ability to resist against the forces of destruction against God's people. We can juggle more than one feeling at a time. and it is essential that we do if we are to have a future that doesn't crystallize in division and bitterness and recrimination. One way to practice right now is to put "and" in between those things in our spirit that exist in tension, juggling them together so that we can maintain our values and identity and create a shared space to meet others with appreciation for our common humanity.